As gamers, we seem to be obsessed with difficult games. Just do a quick search for hard games and you'll be buried in so many options you'd never be able to watch them all. And this is probably because we all have that one game that drove us absolutely mad. And being one who likes a challenge, I've played quite a few. So now, I've taken it upon myself to explore these frustrating monstrosities and see what's fair and what's nothing but unending agony and torment. Welcome to Video Game Hell. Like most kids growing up in the late 80s to early 90s, I was a big fan of the Ninja Turtles, and I would constantly try to get my hands on any game that had them in it. I have fond memories of playing Turtles in Time and the Ninja Turtles arcade game, but the first one I played out of any of them was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. As a kid, the early part of this game seemed to be everything one would want in a Ninja Turtles game. You got to explore bits of the city, do some side-scrolling platforming where you got to fight ninjas and robots in sewers. You got to use ninja power-ups and do sweet ninja flips when you jump. You got to beat up Bebop and Rocksteady, eat pizza, listen to music that sounded rad and kept you pumped. And I mean, sure, Mikey and Raph sucked and the jumping controls made you think the Turtles just have a crippling fear of ceilings, but I'm pretty sure that's all canon anyway. So far, everything seems fine and it's going great until you reach the dam. This frustrating piece of... The first part of this area is simple enough. Just go through some more copy-pasted baddies and deal with more of the turtle ceiling trauma. And then the water level starts. Now, it shouldn't be any surprise that the water level is annoying. This is kinda just an expected things from games. I mean, you can just mention the phrase water temple and almost hear the collective groan from every Zelda player around the world. But this is some next level annoyance. This area seems relatively straightforward. The foot have placed a bunch of explosives in the water and the turtles are simply trying to defuse all of them. Although aside from Donatello, I don't know when the turtles learned bomb defusal, but that's besides the point. And like most water levels of the time, you have to press the jump button periodically to maintain your elevation, all while dealing with these weird lightning gates along the way. But then the first big problem that you run into is this seaweed stuff. This pit seems to have its own gravitational pull, and if you aren't prepared for it, that turtle gets caught and immediately dies.
Top tier game design!
Instant death pits were always kind of a staple of the original NES games. I mean, look no further than Super Mario Bros. Or Mega Man for prime examples of that. But the big difference is that those games establish in the first few moments that they're death pits. Not surprise the player midway through the game with random control changes near them. But whatever, let's just move on to the next turtle and keep going. Having survived the radioactive seaweed, you'll probably begin to notice that the paths start to branch out. And at this point, if you're like me, you're probably thinking, oh neat, I'll actually have to explore to find the bombs. This should be cool. Oh, you poor misguided soul. Now whether through sheer curiosity or necessity, eventually you'll start trying to swim left, which is where you'll probably run into problem number 2. Sometimes the turtles would just randomly swim slower when moving to the left, and it always seemed to happen at the most inopportune times. Like when there's a spinning spike stick you have to avoid, or a set of those electrical gates. Now as a kid I could never figure out why they did this, and it wasn't until I went back to play this as an adult and did a bunch of research to confirm my theory that I figured it out. So it turns out that there are currents at different parts of the dam that affect the turtle's swim speed. This would only be a minor annoyance if it weren't for the fact that there is absolutely no visual indicators to help you know if you're in a current or not. Without these indicators, it's impossible to know what you're doing wrong. Take the conveyor belts from Metal Man stage in Mega Man 2. Before you even get near them, you've got moving parts and blinking arrows, letting you know way ahead of time how these platforms are going to affect your movement. These currents would be like if you just replaced the entire conveyor belt with solid gray and just expected you to know which way the belts are moving so you don't take damage or potentially die. After probably losing quite a bit of the turtle's health to the random control shifts, you continue forward and meet the true bane of this level. This tunnel of kelp. This tunnel pulls some serious NES shenanigans. The amount of space that you have to not get hit by this apparently electrified vegetation is so small, and the swim speed's so unreliable, that your only reliable option is to have enough health between all the turtles to rapidly swap between all of them and just endure your way through. By no means is this the only game of that era that had extremely small windows to avoid damage. Games like Castlevania would constantly pit players against these situations with very narrow windows of success. But they had one thing this game doesn't: consistent controls. Without them, this challenging segment becomes more of a war of attrition. If you manage to survive past this point and are the particularly attentive type, you'll probably start to notice the time limit is getting pretty low, and you'll probably think that you're getting pretty close to finding all the bombs. Yes, aside from all these wonky controls and war of attrition death traps, you have such a short time limit that you're almost required to either know exactly the best route to take to defuse all the bombs, or have enough health to just completely disregard safety and take all the damage this area has to offer, or else kaboom! And it's back to the bottom of the dam and going through the platforming section again. This would be the equivalent of beating Mother Brain in Metroid and having the countdown to escape begin with about 20 seconds more than the optimal path, while throwing in tons of Metroids floating around everywhere and instant death spikes added randomly on various platforms. But that's okay, right? That's what continues are for. I'm sure the game gives you plenty to get through all these ridiculous challenges. Oh wait, this is an NES game. Yes, so in addition to all the complete nonsense this game has thrown at you so far, you're expected to beat it with 2 continues. Mind you, when you first encounter this level unprepared, you'll probably lose one immediately. This is the worst kind of unfair for this type of game. Even Mega Man 2 had a password system, and that released a year before this game came out. Limiting the number of continues does nothing but cause the player to have to grind through the entirety of the game and memorize every little detail just to have a chance to beat it. Not to mention that you have to beat it in one shot. There's a reason that all games have a save system of some kind nowadays. I feel like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a prime example of some of the worst forms of difficulty found in the NES era of games, with all of the challenges being things that you could have absolutely no way of knowing ahead of time, and finding the one item you need with basically no guidance. Is this game fair? Hell no! The challenge is not so much in being skillful or being good at the game, but memorizing the layout. It took the initial joy of playing a Ninja Turtles game and turned it into a painful experience that kept adding frustrations to the stack. But at least later on, the Turtles would end up getting a few good games like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game and Turtles in Time, where the experience we wanted from a Ninja Turtles game would be delivered in a slightly more fair format. But I get the sneaking suspicion that there's some more amphibious creatures that I should be talking about. Oh no. Do you have a game that you'd like discussed on an upcoming episode of Video Game Hell? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below, hit me up on Twitter at WalkVirusGaming, or let me know in the Discord in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep gaming.